for me, I do not feel like this office was set up for success, and I could not in good conscience fire the director.
Will you elaborate on that when you say it wasn't set up for success?
Yeah, I think what we've seen in the last couple months is that there's lots of things that have come up in the public where our policies do not align with what we want. And it's very clear to me that the city of Boise has a lot of work to do to make sure that the Office of Police Accountability, that our chief, that the leadership all are on the same page when it comes to what we expect of police. And even more so, I think it's very important that we send the message that we want the best and brightest being in our police department, that we support them, that we want them to know that public safety is important to us in the city of Boise, and we're going to do all that we can to make sure there's clear expectations and that they have the support of both the city and also a new leader.
Councilmember, we had reported yesterday that the department had viewed at least 8,000 different videos of police interactions outside of complaints. Do you think that that was appropriate? Do you think that that was called for in the code? And then I'll have a follow-up depending on your answer there.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and that was one of the things that I really wrestled with all of this. In my own research, I found that many of the police officers in our force expect that that camera footage is going to be viewed. I think the question is the process, but also there's other state agencies that do that. So this is where we need to make sure and tighten up what we expect. But again, I did not feel like this office was set up success, and firing the director was the right call for me.
Just to clarify, other state agencies have access to
other state agencies,
not our department.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, other state agencies also review body cam footage. The question becomes, what is appropriate and how do we go about doing that? And that's going to require a council discussion. And as you all reported, the council had an inkling of this 8 months ago.
Yes,
This
so
wasn't new information.
do you think that there's a difference between what he said in March, which the slide said, I think, was it 19 random videos and 8,000? Do you think that that changes it, or is this a binary situation where it's either yes, he did it, or no, he didn't?
For me, again, I don't think the office was set up to be led in a way that could accommodate those kind of discussions. And so I do not, for me, that wasn't a tipping point to fire the director, because he had tried to be as transparent as possible.
You keep saying that the office wasn't set up for success. What was wrong with it, and what do you want to see done differently? And if I remember from the timing, did you vote on creating this office, the ordinance, or did that predate you?
That predates me.
Okay, so what do you want to see differently?
Well, first of all, I think we need an open conversation within the city of Boise. That's number one. And we need to have a public discussion about what policing looks like. It's a conversation that's happening all over the country. We have so many good things happening in the city of Boise. We have a very high confidence rating for our police. We need to keep that. So, but I think in terms of like, what does oversight look like? Who does this office report to? I mean, there was so much conversation about the Chief Lee situation and whether, when council was in the know, when council wasn't in the know. And I think we've got to get those conversations on the record and clear.
Lucy, what kind of like due process and investigation was done here? I mean, it seemed pretty quickly moving. Like, Jesus was placed on leave, and then now a couple days later, he's being removed. I mean, what kind of investigation did the city do, if any?
I can't speak to that because I think that would be viewed as personnel. I think you need to direct that to the mayor's office.
Is this the right area to focus the attention on in the wake of the Chief Lee situation?
I think having a conversation about policing and how we build upon decades of good work is the right conversation. The question becomes, what does oversight look like? How do we ensure that the public is getting what it needs, but also that there's a place where you can go for complaints? But in terms of the Chief Lee situation, I mean, if you look at where people were going with complaints, it was like a giant bowl of spaghetti. There's so much work that needs to be done here. It was very complicated. So let's take some time and get it right.
So the question is, I guess, if that's the focus, if it's where do we direct complaints to, why focus that attention on OPA?
I think it's all of it. I think it all works together. You have a leader of our police. Then you also have this independent body that needs to have the ability to take input and concerns from citizens, and how do we make sure that creates an environment of trust? And that's what, we just have a lot of work to do, and I know we all want answers right away, but I think this has been building for a long time, and it's time for us as the city of Boise to really look and work together.
If you could write this ordinance today, what would you change?
Margaret, that's a great question, and I am a policy wonk at heart, but I think I would look at, overall, I would look at the reporting schedule, reporting structure. We need to do a lot of research about what's worked in other cities, what hasn't. So for me, it's about looking at best practices, and we're gonna have to look at best practices when it comes to reviewing footage, but to me, the reporting structure is what is the first thing we need to look at. Does that work? And I don't think it has.
So we know, and I know this is a personnel question,
Yeah.
but directionally, were there other things beyond the viewing of videos that led up to the decision to fire the director, or was it just that one thing?
I think for other council members, there were other things.
Okay.
And you would need to ask them that.
Pierce Murphy had a lot of success in this office. Would you be opposed to going back to just recreating the ordinance at that time and the structure of the office at that time?
Well, that's a great suggestion. So I was a civilian 20 years ago. I'm a piece of 20 years ago. I've been in the city of Boise. It'll be exactly 20 years in 2023. I remember as a civilian hearing all about Pierce Murphy. He was in the news. It was something that I think if you talk to anybody, they knew Pierce Murphy's name. They understood what his role was. I think everything's on the table as we look. I mean, in some ways, this has just been building from, you know, what happened with Chief Lee, you know, what's happened with the Bringleson case, and now OPA. And I think it's time for us to just look at the whole picture and the whole landscape and see, you know, sometimes what worked back then may be what we need to work today. I think the bigger thing, so I'm gonna always talk about the bigger picture, we need two things to happen. We need the public to have a place to go to ensure that things are being done correctly. In other words, that they have confidence in the police. That is fundamental. But we also need police who have confidence in the city of Boise. And so that should be our goal. That should be our marker. That should be our North Star.
Do you feel like right now with everything going on, that's kind of been diminished a little bit, police confidence in its leadership?
I think you need to talk to police directly, but they've been on a roller coaster ride, and I think we need to recognize that. You know, there's been a lot that's happened in the last few months, and let's own that a lot has happened, and then how do we move forward?
Lucy, the ordinance says the Office of Police Accountability is given full, unrestricted, and complete access to their files, evidence, or other material. So if the ordinance specifically says that, then, you know, can you at least speak to, like, what was wrong with viewing those and auditing those, like, body cam footages if the ordinance says that they're supposed to have unrestricted access to those things?
So for me, again, that was not a tipping point. That was not something that I thought was a fireable offense because of the ordinance, and also I think there's a lot of murkiness in it.
What do you think of the director's decision to write a memo back in March about the chief and his decision to recommend that the chief be put on leave?
I think the entire situation with Chief Lee and OPA is one that brought it to light. The question has always been, would Chief Lee still be our police chief if this hadn't been made public? And I think the answer is no. Or actually, let me rephrase that. If this hadn't been made public, I think Chief Lee would likely still be our police chief.
Do you think he should have been still the police chief? Do you agree with him being removed?
Yes, I do.
Sorry, you agree with him being removed?
The police chief, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And you're of the opinion, and this is why you voted no, that you can continue on into the future of reshaping policing or the Office of Police Accountability with the director still in place?
Well, I think that is the fundamental question for a lot of the council members. For me, as I looked at the record, I did not feel comfortable. My conscience could not fire the director. I would have liked to have seen an opportunity for us to work together. But that, and in many ways, this is the mayor's call. I mean, when you elect a mayor, you get the opportunity to elect, you know, a leadership position, and because the director refused to resign, then it came to council. And at the end of the day, the council chose. But for me personally, I could not in good conscience vote to fire him.
What happens to the OPA now without its director?
That's a great question, and I would direct that to the mayor's office. There'll be a transition plan.
We're grateful for you talking to us. You're the only one talking to us. Are you at odds with the others on the council? Is this putting you speaking to us today, is that going to put you at
Well, I think one of the things that districts have changed is the opportunity for a new voice. For a lot of you who have followed city council, you know that I have a different perspective on a lot of things, and I think it's really important that we have different voices at the table. My fellow city council people are lovely to me, and they know that we each have a role, and we all have to make decisions based on what we know and what we believe, and also at the end of the day what we think is right. And I don't begrudge that they had a different opinion than me, and they won't begrudge that I have a different opinion.
Councilman Wells, thank you so much.
Yeah, anything else?